You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God.
Tu es l'image de Dieu.
I hold you in my heart.
Tu es l'image de l'amour.
You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God.
Tu sei la luce di Dio.
I hold you in my heart.
Tu sei il volto dell'amore.
You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of love.
The face of love.
I hold you in my heart. You are my family.
You are my family.
You are the face of
the face of love.
You are the face of love.
The face of love.
I hold you in my heart.
You in my heart.
You are my family.
You are my family.
You are the face of love.
The face of love.
You are the face of God.
The face of God.
I hold you in my heart.
You in my heart.
You are a part of me. You are the face of God.
The face of God.
You are the face of God.
Eres la luz de Dios.
I hold you in my heart.
Eres la cara del amor.
You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. You are the face
Tu
of
sei la luce di Dio.
You are the face
You
of
are the
God.
face of God.
You are the face
Tu
of
es
God.
l'image de Dieu.
You are the face
You
of God.
are the face of God.
You are the face
Tu
of
sei
God.
la luz de Dios.
You are the face
You
of God.
are the face of God.
You are the face
Tu
of God.
ruh khudai.
You are the face
You
of God.
are the face of God.
You are the face of God.
Eres la luz de Dios.
You are the face of You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God.
Tu es l'image de Dieu.
I hold you in my heart.
Tu es l'image de l'amour.
You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God.
Tu sei la luce di Dio.
I hold you in my heart.
Tu sei il volto dell'amore.
You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of love.
The face of love.
I hold you in my heart. You are my family.
You are my family.
You are the face of
love. The face of love.
You are the face of love.
The face of love.
I hold you in my heart.
You in my heart.
You are my family.
You are my family.
You are the face of love.
The face of love.
You are the face of God.
The face of God.
I hold you in my heart.
You in my heart.
You are a part of me.
A part of me.
You are the face of God.
The face of God.
You are the face of God.
Eres la luz de Dios.
I hold you in my heart.
Eres la cara del amor.
You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. You are the face
Tu
of
sei la luce di Dio.
You are the face
You
of
are the
God.
face of God.
You are the face
Tu
of
es
God.
l'image de Dieu.
You are the face
You
of God.
are the face of God.
You are the face
Tu
of
sei
God.
la luz de Dios.
You are the face
You
of God.
are the face of God.
You are the face
Tu
of God.
ruh e khudai.
You are the face
You
of
are the face of God.
You are the face of
Eres la luz de Dios.
You are the face of
Good morning and welcome to Spiritual Life Center, a church that love is building.
Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel God's mighty power and God's grace. I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
Our message message today is being provided by Ray Santorini, who is not only an all-around wonderful person and a terrific musician, but also is a presenter, teacher, and speaker at countless numbers of organizations around the country, including corporations and educational institutions. We are so grateful for Ray. But first, let us open with prayer. Dear God, we come together open and receptive to your universal energy of good, to your love and peace, grateful for that which is working in our lives rather than disappointed over that which is not. Guide us, empower us, loving Spirit, to follow your will and your way in discovering for ourselves your universal principles and applying these effectively in our lives. Gratefully, we embrace your truth that sets us free. In the name and through the power and in the nature of the Christ Spirit that lives within us all. Amen.
You who dwell in the shelter of the Lord, who abides in his shadow for life, say to the Lord, my refuge, my rock, in whom I trust, and he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. The snare of the fowler will never capture you, and famine will bring you no fear. Under his wings your refuge, his faithfulness your shield, and he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. For to his angels he's given a command to guard you in all of your ways. Upon their hands they will bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand, and hold you in the palm of his hand.
Loving Father, in the quiet of this moment, I pray that every person here, whatever the need, may know the all-sufficiency of the indwelling, living God. For the Lord is in his holy temple. Those who need guidance, direction, are now enfolded in the all-knowing mind that is God. And he is ready to fulfill every demand, to answer every question, and illumine every conscious thought. Wisdom flows as a river through every soul, bringing deep perception and perfect judgment. The atmosphere around me and within me is vibrant and alive. I trust in the Lord with all my heart. I no longer lean on my own understanding. In all my ways I acknowledge him, and God is directing my path. I trust my indwelling God to lift my dear ones from darkness, from confusion and illness, and into his radiant light and healing power. God, as love is flowing through me now, enfolding me, enfolding them. Their faces shine brightly as I picture them free and perfect, filled with light. I praise and give thanks to you as I behold your glory. Our Father, you are the way, the truth, and the life. As we look to you, infinite presence, one holy mind, we find you everywhere in everything. As we acknowledge you in all people, all things, answers come from everything we contact. The universe tells us of itself. It shares and reveals its secrets and its joys. And yet, Father, I know that this response is really you, the perfect parent, being aware of me, your unfolding child. You have seen me from a long way off and have come to me to feed and nourish me, to sustain me, to bless and to enrich me, to fulfill every need, my highest dreams, my deepest desire. And so I take this time now to connect with you in these moments of silence, as I allow my gratitude to pour forth in the silence, in the sweet silence of spirit. I bring my awareness back to this room, to the activities of this day. I'm a new person in you, bringing my light, the light that is mine alone to give to the world. We ask that our prayers go out to those who have special needs, that they may know your comfort and your healing ways, that our leaders know you by the wisdom and good judgment that flows easily, effortlessly through them as they govern from the heart and head. And that peace will prevail and a greater experience of your love will be felt in the world today. And now, let us join together as we sing and pray the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Rose and flows and angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds' illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way that you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave him laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way. But now old friends, they're acting strange. They shake their heads, they say that I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life. I really don't know life at all.
Thank you, Nancy. I've always loved that song, and I especially love the way you perform it as only you can. And Ron, I want to thank you for affording me the opportunity to present the message today. I'm always honored when you ask me to do it. And you might remember, Ron, a few weeks back when you initially called me and asked me if I would do this, I mentioned to you that the day before, I actually thought of a topic for the talk at the church. And it's funny how interesting that the next day you called and asked me about that. You know, is that coincidence or is it a God job? I'm going to go with a God job. So many of you know what I do for a living, present in corporate environments, training, leadership training, some call it inspirational, motivational, but also topics that are very specific to business growth. And by far the most requested topic that I've been asked to do over the last year is the topic of emotional intelligence, also known as EI or often thought of as EQ. And I'm sure many of you have heard that term. Some of you may be familiar with it to some degree. But each time that I've taught it, I've always thought about how it applies spiritually. And I always thought about, I would love to do a talk on spiritual intelligence. So, I kind of thought, I call it SI or SQ. And I thought it was really on to something new until I actually looked up shortly after I thought of this, whether there was something actually called spiritual intelligence. And there is. So the Wikipedia definition of spiritual intelligence is a term used by some philosophers and psychologists and developmental theorists to indicate spiritual parallels with IQ, intelligence quotient, or EQ, emotional quotient. So I thought I was new to the party. Obviously, I was not, but I'm happy to give credit to somebody else. But at any rate, I came across it my own way. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what spiritual intelligence actually is, because when I teach the class, we actually break it down into subcategories. And so I'm going to give you, first of all, a couple of definitions from the dictionary. Let's start with dictionary.com, the unabridged version. I'm going to read this to you. So the definition of emotional intelligence is a skill in perceiving, understanding, and managing emotions and feelings. Right? So obviously it's all about understanding why we think a certain way, why we feel a certain way, and being able to deal with those and manage those effectively. But if you expand that definition into the one from the Oxford Dictionaries online, here's what they have to say about it. They say that emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Okay? So in other words, it's not only how do we manage our own emotions, but how do we manage them in the context of our relationships with other people. And what I like to think of, and I always use this in my trainings, I call this my dancing with the stars analogy. Okay? I bet all of us have at least heard of, maybe watched at least one episode, if you're willing to admit it, of Dancing with the Stars. Now, in case you're not familiar with it, I will admit it. But Dancing with the Stars, obviously a competitive show that basically matches a professional dancer instructor with an amateur. And the amateur is usually some type of an athlete, somebody well known, an athlete, an actor or actress, something like that. And I have found in watching those that athletes do not always make great dancers. Okay? Now, I'm not a dance expert by any means. Some of you may recall my mother was a big dancer, ballroom dancer back in the day. So I watched her and learned a lot from her. I don't know the cha-cha from the hustle, from the West Coast swing, to any of those. I know the names, but I don't know the difference. But when I'm watching two people dancing together, I can tell if it looks like it's going smoothly. And if you think about it, if you ever watched an initial episode, right, usually the two come out together. They maybe have had the professional and the amateur maybe had a short amount of time to work together. And it's pretty amazing how good they look together. And you think, boy, that amateur is pretty good. But if you really zoom in on who's doing most of the work, hopefully most of you will agree with me, it's usually the pro, right? The pro's got all the great moves. They're sliding under the legs. They're jumping over the other person. They're doing everything they can to make it look good. And the amateur's kind of just doing little stuff, like stuff I can do, like turn this way, turn that way. But together they look really good. And obviously the hope is, as the professional works more with the amateur is going to improve, and they can sort of give control of the dance over to the amateur, right? They give them a little bit more of the spotlight. And so what the professional is able to do is sort of read where the other person is dynamically and make adjustments so the two of them together look really good. And the reason that I use this analogy in emotional intelligence is, when we understand and apply emotional intelligence, we have the ability to impact others in a positive way. In other words, our positive emotions become contagious to other people. Right? Now, why in my mind is there such a parallel between emotional intelligence and the realm of spirituality? Why did it keep resonating with me? Well, it always reminds me, I think back to a song that's been imprinted in my brain since I was younger, and I heard a lot when I used to go to church with my mom as a young child. And it's from a Bible verse, which happens to be Matthew chapter 25, verse 40. And some of you may remember the lyrics to the song. Whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me. And that always reminds me. So what it makes me realize is that whatever we're doing, how we interact with people really does matter. And what I love about Bible verses, there's so much depth in word choice. So notice it doesn't say what you do to my brothers. It says whatever you do to the least of my brothers. And so, it has to do with how we act around those people that maybe rub us the wrong way. So the question for me comes up is, how do we treat people who are different than we are, with whom that we disagree, right? So, and I realize for me that if I'm to follow a path of spiritual enlightenment, it's really up to me. It's my responsibility not to avoid people who are different than me, not even to just learn to accept them, but literally to be able to embrace them. Why? Simply because they're children of God. Okay? And it hit me that when you really understand and apply emotional intelligence, you're honoring God's will. So that's why I was able to make that connection between emotional intelligence and the thought of spiritual intelligence, which, as I said, somebody already beat me to the punch. This whole concept is what I would call simple, but not easy. So understanding spiritual intelligence is rather easy, but applying it is not. And what makes it easier to be able to apply is really when we really understand its two prime areas of focus. And let's take a look at what those are. So if we look at the primary areas of focus of spiritual intelligence, they can break down like this: the intrapersonal and the interpersonal. Okay? And you notice we've got highlighted on the screen different prefixes, intra and inter. And if you think about an intranet versus an internet, an intrastate highway, interstate highway. So intra means within. Interpersonal means without, in other words, amongst others. Okay, so these can actually be broken down into what we call competencies. So what do we mean by competencies? Well, competencies are basically metrics or ways that we can measure our progress in any one of those areas. So within those two areas of focus, we said intrapersonal, we got three competencies. The first of which is our self-awareness. To be self-aware means that we're willing to take responsibility for our feelings and our actions. Where have you heard that before? It's a unity principle that's been practiced all along. As we all have heard before, our thoughts are what dictates our feelings, which often leads to what our actions are. And so if we can learn to manage our thoughts effectively, then our feelings, we can manage those as well, and they'll be reflected in the actions that we take. Now, how do you do that? By simply, I call this interrogating the process. When we find those feelings coming up of frustration, of reaction, is simply questioning ourselves and asking ourselves things like, what's my part in this? And what am I doing that might trigger the other people that are involved in what's happening? How can I look at this situation in a more positive or godlike way? I call this also self-therapy, right? So can I kind of drill down and take a look at what's happening? And oftentimes I'll discover some new ways of looking at things that I didn't think of prior to that. Okay? And then once I practice that and I'm doing that consistently, then I'm better managing my emotions. Again, questioning, asking questions like, why am I so triggered by whatever the event that's causing it? Okay? What does this bring up from my past? And again, drilling down, trying to find it. When I can discover what that sort of root cause is, I'm in a better position to make a different decision about it. Then this leads to self-motivation. So self-motivation, again, is the ability to channel our emotions, whether they're positive or negative, in a constructive way. And what that takes is the ability to recognize that what we call destructive emotions, anger, fear, rage, etc., are a form of energy. And we can ask ourselves, again, how can I channel this energy in a constructive way? Well, one thought that works for me, if I just recenter myself, is to remember that God is in charge. God has a plan. And again, it may not be visible to me in that moment, but if I can just keep saying that to myself and coming back to that true north, then I often recognize that that's the case and I can settle myself down. So once we master the practice of interpersonal spiritual intelligence, or the three competencies that are interpersonal, right? The self-awareness, managing the emotions, and the self-motivation. And remember, mastering doesn't mean that we become perfect at it. We don't want to wait that long, because I know for me, it'll never happen, but it means we're practicing them regularly. Then we become effective in our relationships with others. And we can really start to see progress in our interpersonal competencies. Remember, the first of those is being able to relate well to others. And how do we master that? It's sort of, again, thinking about the impact that we have on others. So, for example, asking yourself the question, what's the impact on the big picture if I react in a certain way, in a negative way? Somebody once taught me a concept to bring to mind. It's called the 777 rule. Interesting name. What they basically said is when you feel those emotions welling up, ask yourself, what will the impact be if I let these emotions out the way they feel like they want to come out? What will the impact be in 7 hours, 7 days, 7 weeks? And what I call that is sort of stepping away from the weeds so we can see the big picture effect of our emotions. And a lot of times we're going to realize there's things that may happen that we may not be able to take back. So that can cause us to pause and make a better decision. What also works for me is to always remind myself of the statement that Jack Boland used to say over and over, and that is that everyone is always doing the very best they can with the awareness that they have. And when I think about that, I realize we're all sort of on our own path. Everybody's got their own ways of dealing with things. Who am I to judge you if you look at things or do things in a different way? Because in your mind, that's the best way to do it. And what that allows me to do is let go of my attachment of wanting it to be different. And now I can free myself and be able to move forward. You know the old saying, when we hold a grudge against somebody else, it's usually us that suffers more than the person that we're holding a grudge against. And when we practice these little things, it can help us with relating well to others, understanding them better. Then we get to that final competency, which is emotional mentoring. And what that basically means is that we are able to spread the wealth. Our positive energy is contagious. And the great thing about this is when you're practicing those first 4, the 5th one comes natural. In other words, we're not trying to impose our thoughts or ideas on others. We're not trying to make them be a certain way or teach them a lesson. It just happens organically. In other words, you positively impact others by simply just being yourself. I believe that when we practice these concepts consistently, we're honoring God's will. And the amazing thing is, God responds in amazing ways. I've seen it happen so many times in my own life. Rather than sharing my own stories, I want to tell you about someone by the name of John Rahm. You may have heard that name recently. He's a professional golfer. He's 26 years old. He's been a golf pro since 2016. He's got a bit of a history of being a hothead. There have been several times in the past when he acted in, you might call, an unprofessional manner, both on and off the golf course. And for a long time, he was not very respected by his peers in the golf world. And he and his wife, Kelly, welcomed their first child, their son, back on April 3rd of this year. And at that point, he made a commitment to his wife and his son and to himself that he was going to grow up and learn to manage his emotions. So again, it's very parallel with what we're talking about here, emotional intelligence. Back on June 5th, earlier this month, John was playing in the Memorial Tournament, and he was in the 3rd round on a Saturday. And in that round, he played the best round of his professional golf career. He started that round well behind the leaders, and he ended it with a 6-stroke lead, which was unheard of at that level of golf. And usually when you end the 3rd round, you go into the 4th round, the final round, with a lead that size, it's almost insurmountable. So he really had a great opportunity to make a big comeback and win. Well, when he walked off the 18th green that day, he was approached by tournament officials. Live on television, I watched, and his knees buckled. He put his hands over his face, and you could hear him say into the microphone, "Not again." And he kind of threw his arms up the air, started to walk off of the course. And what happened is he was forced to withdraw because while he was on the course for that final round, he received word, the officials received word that he had tested positive for COVID-19. So automatic withdrawal from the tournament. He had to give up that lead and give up his possibility of winning the tournament. He went in, he gave his press conference very professionally, but after that he had to quarantine for almost 2 weeks. Tough enough, but he didn't get the opportunity to see his wife and his newborn child. So how do you think the old John Rahm, the hothead, may have responded? Well, you can only imagine, because this was the new John Rahm. So this past weekend, only 2 weeks after all this occurred, John competed in the US Open, which is one of the 4 major tournaments for a professional golfer. And in the final day, in the final round, he came back from 4 strokes down to actually win the tournament. Now that was impressive, but what really impressed me the most was what he had to say in his press conference afterwards. And I actually wrote down some of the quotes as I listened to him because I was so amazed by his comeback. So when talking, he was asked about the Memorial Tournament a few weeks before, in which he was forced to withdraw. And here were some of the things that he said. Quote, "I was disappointed, but I wasn't angry." Quote, "These are the rules for a reason." So if you think about it from a point of spiritual intelligence, he's applying self-awareness and self-management. He also said, quote, "I decided I wanted to be a good example for my son," unquote. So there's self-motivation. So he's applying all these, probably not even knowing he's doing it. And then finally he said, "I told myself that from the biggest setbacks come the biggest breakthroughs. Something positive is going to come. I don't know when, but I know something positive is going to come." And he said this was the least amount of pressure he had ever felt in a tournament. Look at all the positives that came out of it when he made the decision to change the way that he looked at things. So in my eyes, John was practicing spiritual intelligence. And because of his effort, he was rewarded. So if you think about it, it's amazing what happens to us when we really shift our attention from ourselves to what God intends for us. And whether or not we mention God's name in the process, when we intend to serve God's children with respect and love, I believe God performs miracles on our behalf, as he promises in the Bible. Faith, the definition of faith, according to Webster's dictionary, is the firm belief in something for which there is no proof. I don't actually believe in that definition because I've seen a lot of proof in my life. And I bet that if you ask John Rahm, he would tell you the same thing. So now I want to invite you all to close your eyes, sit back and relax, breathe deep and soft, and join me in listening to one of my favorite spiritual songs performed beautifully on an acoustic guitar. The song is called "Get Ready, My Soul," performed by Daniel Namad.
Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Everything I've ever done, everything I've ever seen, everything I've lost or won, everything I've ever dreamed has brought me here to the present moment, here to a new beginning here. And I'm seeing life so clearly now. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, Get ready, my soul. 'Cause here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. Here I go, closer, closer, closer to my sacred source. Here I go, deeper, deeper, deeper than I've ever been before. Here I go, closer, closer, closer to my sacred source. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in to the deepest kind of love, to the sweetest kind of life. Get ready, my soul. Get ready, my soul.
Daniel Namath, thank you for your wonderful music. And Ray Santorini, thank you so much for a terrific, inspiring message. We are delighted that each of you have shared this experience with us today. We hope it has provided you a measure of insight, inspiration to further your spiritual path. We ask that you join us in our prayer of sharing. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And if you are able to share a financial blessing with us this morning, there are 3 ways that you might do so. First, through online giving at our secure website, which is www.slctroy.com/give. Or second way is to mail a check or money order to Spiritual Life Center, 41340 Fox Run Road, number 106, Novi, Michigan, 48377. Or you can call me on my cell with one-time credit card information. That number is 248-925-6214. We would also like to welcome anyone joining us for your first time today, or one of your first times. Invite you to join our email list, and you may do so by visiting our website, www.slctroy.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, click on Join Email List. And when you put in your email address, this will allow us to keep you informed of the events happening here at Spiritual Life Center. If you have any prayer requests for yourself, for a loved one, a friend, you can send those to us at ronaldfscott@gmail.com, and we will forward your prayer requests onto our prayer team, as well as to Silent Unity, where it will be prayed over for 30 days. You can send that to my email address, ronaldfscott@gmail.com, or call my cell 248-925-6214. We invite you to tune in next week as well for a special July 4 Independence Day message and service. Also, if you are interested in how the principles of unity came about and what they embrace, you can still go back to the YouTube lesson that I provided a couple of weeks ago on Lessons in Truth, Part 1. I will be continuing Parts 2 and 3 during the course of the summer. And now, we would invite you to join our Zoom coffee hour at 11 o'clock or immediately following the service. You should have received an email with a new link for this. If not, please contact us and we will get that information to you. Now, please join us in our peace song and benediction. God bless.
Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let me walk with my family in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me.
And now as you go forth, know that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you.
The Lord bless thee and keep thee.
The power of God protects you.
The Lord make his face to shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee.
The presence of God watches over you.
The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and grant thee peace.
Wherever you are, God is.
Amen. Amen.
Go your way rejoicing. All is truly well.